We've seen everything from gods to millionaires, but we've never seen a hero just try to make it through a callback. Today, we're going to do a little deep dive into Marvel's Wonder Man. That is part of Marvel's spotlight, like Echo, meaning that it's grounded in the real world, character driven, and you don't really need a PhD to really understand it and the Marvel MCU in a whole. So about this show, I absolutely enjoyed it. It got a little slow towards the end, but all in all, I really enjoyed this show. It was a breath of fresh air that kind of poked fun at the industry, meaning Hollywood. It has a big heart as well. I mean, we're talking about a guy with powers, with who eyes glow at times when he gets stressed out, it appears. And he's suppressing and hiding all of that because he's more worried about a headshot and making it into Hollywood and his audition videos than any potential alien invasion or doom that could be coming to but from the chemistry that Yaya and Sir Ben Kingsley had and the wild meta commentary about Hollywood and the industry as a whole, this was a great series and I highly recommend it for everybody to watch. So with all that being said, let's talk Wonder Man. So right off the bat, you could tell that they put money into this show. It had great locations. It was beautifully shot. It had a great cast. It was a love letter to Hollywood, and not the fake Hollywood, the real Hollywood. All of the traffic, the shitty parking, the serious raps, the getting fired after one episode for giving your opinion, all the things like that. But at his heart, it's a character study on Simon Williams. He's a guy with a massive power, but this power, he doesn't try to embrace it. He actually tries to suppress it because he's trying to live out his childhood dream of being an actor, something that him and his father kind of put together when they went to go see a movie together later on in this show. But it's not just about that. It's about rejection. It's about depression. It's about that need for self-acceptance in a world where not everybody is accepted. I feel like I was honestly kind of watching a masterclass on acting. And that's just my opinion. But before we get into the mentor protege dynamic and those few little plot holes that I found, if you're loving breakdowns like this, hit that subscribe button. It really helps the show and it also keeps you in the loop on everything MCU and beyond. But before we get into anything else, there are some spoilers in this, so I guess I will give a spoiler warning, but I'm not going to try to spoil it a lot because I really want everybody to go see it. So I don't really want to go spoil it because this show is really worth watching and I think everybody should go give it a check. So that's your spoiler warning, but there are not going to be a lot of spoilers. I'm just kind of going to just talk through the show and hit on a few of the important points, talk about those plot holes, like I said, and then we're going to get out of here. But I'm not going to really spoil the show this time around. So episode 1 basically sets the stage. We meet Simon. He's a struggling actor in Hollywood. He's going to auditions. He's actually on the set of American Horror Story, and he is a pain in the ass. But we also find out that he's a powered person, and he's suppressing his powers because he wants to be an actor, and he's trying to carve out this path for himself in Hollywood that he kind of set himself upon because of a dream that him and his father came up with, and his father, by the way, passed away. So then you have Trevor Slattery. He's not the Mandarin anymore, and he's not over with Shang-Chi and the 10 Rings and all of that stuff. He's back in the States and he's back in Hollywood and he's pretending that he wants to be an actor again when he's really just trying to evade the DODC and somehow get his freedom. So he decides to work for them and go spy on Simon, and because they think he's dangerous for some reason, and they never really touch on his powers a lot in this show. So I'm curious to wonder why they thought he was so dangerous, because they never said why they thought he was dangerous. They just said, oh, Simon Williams is a dangerous person. He's a dangerous human, or whatever, the dangerous power person. But maybe he's a mutant, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about that later. And the DODC, because I think they are kind of laying the groundwork for the mutant saga that's coming up. So we'll talk about that later. But once Trevor and Simon's paths collide, is flawless chemistry from there on. Those two did their job and they carried the weight of this show. And it was designed that way, obviously, but they did a great job with carrying this show, and the chemistry was great. It gives it gave off that buddy cop feel, in my opinion. And before we get into any more of it, let's talk about Ben Kingsley. He was amazing. The different voice changes, the Shakespeare, the King Lear, different movements, how he went in and out of different characters while all being Trevor at the same time it was top notch. And, and although he's secretly spying on Simon and he's really in this to protect himself, through this show, you see his character arc change and he grows a bigger heart, and he's not this backstabbing person that he maybe once was, or just out for himself. He actually grows and becomes full circle as far as a character goes. He goes from being selfish and being the Mandarin and everything in between. Then he goes to Shang-Chi and that world, and he finds some type of peace, and now he's back over here. And while he initially is fucking Simon over, he kind of pulls back in and, now he wants to help Simon, and he becomes a real mentor, and he wants to train Simon, and he honestly becomes a legitimate friend. But it's not really a superhero show. So if you're looking for a superhero show, you're not really going to get one. You're going to get touches of his powers here and there. He's going to break a counter at his mom's house. He's going to blow open a hole in his wall, but they're not really going to show it. They're just going to show the imprint and the ramifications of what happened. But it's not really a superhero show. It's really just a show about Simon, who is struggling, and his ultimate goal is to be cast in this movie as Wonder Man. That's basically it. But the way it was done, and the way it was character driven, and the way the characters' arcs played out was perfect for a non-superhero show. And it actually shows that they cared about the characters and not about all the explosions, even though there was an explosion, but that wasn't the forefront of what this show was. It was a show about the people and the characters and not what they could do. Which brings me to the Doorman episode and why actors in Hollywood can't have powers. Because this one actor who really wasn't an actor, he was a bouncer and just happened to be friends or cool with Josh Gad. He had a cool little power, or he got this power from some ooze from Roxxon, and the Marvel guys will know what that means. And we might get into that later. But he gets his powers from some ooze, and he sees all these white doors. I thought I was in an episode of Welcome to Derry for a second, but nonetheless, on a movie set one day, Josh Gad tries to jump through him. He doesn't come back, and basically the guy gets blackballed from Hollywood. And then you have the Doorman clause, which basically says actors in Hollywood can't have powers. And he's the reason why, because Josh Gad still hasn't come back, but maybe he will come back one day. We will see in the show. Real life, I'm sure he's around. But in the show, he is no longer around. At least for the moment. And honestly, while I was watching the show, I thought that could have been just a 5-minute conversation. They could have just told us about that. But after I saw how everything played out and I realized what the show was, I really grew to appreciate that episode. But for me, after this is when the season slows down. We kind of see what happens in the trailer. We know he's going to get the part as Wonder Man. We know they're both going to get cast in a movie. So that's basically where everything that plays out. And then we get into the finale, and that's where the real payoff kind of happens. Trevor shows his real remorse, and he basically sacrifices himself by turning into the Mandarin again. And that was really fun, by seeing him put his glasses on and, do this little accent, because he goes into another character for the Mandarin. And he actually helped Simon by turning himself into the DODC. But I think the big reveal was we actually see Simon embrace his full potential. And like I said, they sprinkle in his powers here and there, but we never actually see all of his potential at once. We know that he's strong. We know that he can fly now. We know that has some type of kinetic energy, but we never actually see it all put together against like some big villain. But I do think it was cool watching Simon break Trevor out of the prison and fly off into who knows where, and literally leaving this open for a season 2, although it was presented to us as a special presentation. So who knows if we'll get a season 2 or not. It seems to be doing really well, so maybe they will. We'll see. But those little plot holes that I told you about, they're not really plot holes, but they're things that I just picked up on. Like I said, we never actually learned what Simon powers are. Well, at least all of them, or what they kind of do put together. We don't know if he was born with those powers or did he develop them in some type of way, kind of how the Doorman seemingly got his from that ooze. I guess it's kind of implied that he got his powers at birth and maybe he's a mutant, like I said, and it was activated through that fire that they had at his house. So maybe he's a mutant. It's not confirmed. Don't know. That's just my speculation. And that kind of leads me to talking about his dad. We know his dad died. They don't necessarily say how. Is it connected to that house fire? Which kind of leads me to believe that he may be a mutant because maybe that killed his father, but they never really touched on it. Everybody's kind of past it and have mourned over it, but I don't know. They never really touch on it. They don't shine a lot of light on that. So who knows? Just something I picked up on. But like I said, this is a must watch. I give this a 9 out of 10. Why don't give it a 10 out of 10? Yeah, just because we don't really get to see his powers. At the end of the day, this is a superhero show, so I do kind of want to see you use your powers. Outside of that, I don't have a problem with this. This is a must watch. This is an easy 9 out of 10. This is honestly easy of 10 out of 10, but I'm just giving a 9 out of 10 just so I could be picky about something, I guess. But Wonder Man is proof that Marvel actually still cares about all of his characters, especially when they take time to back away from the CGI and all the explosions and actually just give us a look at the character itself. Now, whether the DODC is going to be a bigger threat, which I think they will be, and that secret prison is probably hinting at the X-Men and, you know, some type of mutant prison in the future looks bright. It looks very, very bright, and I think we're going to have a really good year in the Marvel Universe. But let me know what you guys thought about the show. Let me know what you thought about that Doorman episode, because that in itself was a Atlanta-style fun episode. And until next time, I will see you then. Thank you for watching. I will see you then. Please like and subscribe. Thank you again, and bye.